Esta guerra política interna entre Donald Trump e Elon Musk ha sido tan interesante de ver, no solo por ver a estos hombres rotos tan hambrientos de atención y dispuestos a atacarse de cualquier forma con tal de conseguir la misma atención, sino porque está ocurriendo frente a sus fanáticos más crédulos. Y a estas alturas, gran cantidad de estas personas que antes los apoyaban fervientemente o están dudando de apoyarlos o simplemente ya no los apoyan, ya que están viendo cómo su disonancia cognitiva se rompe con cada nueva acusación que se lanza del uno hacia el otro. Y el nuevo ataque de Donald Trump contra Elon Musk diciendo que está considerando realmente deportarlo saca a la luz un aspecto criminal del pasado de Elon relacionado con el sistema migratorio, algo que fue expuesto en el Congreso y realmente vamos a hablar de esto en el video. Pero antes de ver cómo atraparon a Elon Musk en el Congreso, tenemos que empezar por cómo comenzó todo esto. Y desafortunadamente fue hace un par de días cuando Donald Trump visitó Florida.
I want to show you what it is supposed to look like on the day a president of the United States sees their signature legislation pass through one house of Congress.
Yeah, who is testing?
It must be big.
That's it.
So that was the scene in the Roosevelt Room in the White House, the day that the Affordable Care Act finally passed the House. It's probably very familiar to everybody watching. Everyone in that room nervously watching the screen, really quiet, waiting for that final vote to come in. Then everyone erupts in cheers. The president hugs the vice president, high fives all around. And all of that is what passing major legislation you're really proud of looks like in a normal administration. You kind of have to wonder, if and when Donald Trump's big ugly bill passes the House and reaches his desk, will there be hugs and high fives? Will they celebrate like the Obama team did on that day in 2010? Will they put out a video of it? I raised that question because if what Donald Trump did today is any sort of a guide, it seems like he'd rather be talking about pretty much anything else. I mean, today after the Senate voted to rip healthcare away from millions of Americans, Trump departed D.C. for a different kind of swamp of sorts. His new Florida tent prison for immigrants, the one he calls Alligator Alcatraz, and is literally selling merchandise around as well, which is gross. He spent the day touring cages in a makeshift tent instead of focusing on the only major legislation he has put forward in his second term. The signature legislation that his biggest supporters in Congress claim is basically his legacy. And it wasn't like he didn't have any opportunities to talk about the big ugly bill along the way. I mean, every chance he got, every chance, he stopped to talk to reporters. But he was always focused on something else.
Esta Alcatraz del Caimán es una de las formas más perturbadoras en las que Donald Trump ha tratado de distraer al pueblo estadounidense, ya que la mayor cantidad de cosas que han pasado durante su administración no han sido nada más ni nada menos que una distracción. Las asquerosas redadas del ICE, o sea de la migra que estamos viendo actualmente por todo Estados Unidos, es una especie de truco político. Y en realidad es un espectáculo porque Donald Trump no ha podido alcanzar los números que ha querido alcanzar. Y cuando digo números, me refiero a números de deportaciones que ha querido alcanzar. Porque así lo ve Donald. No lo ve como personas que separa de familias, no lo ve como familias rotas, familias destruidas, personas avergonzadas, personas humilladas, personas golpeadas, personas que están perdiendo una oportunidad de vida. Él lo ve como simples números. Ya que al principio de su campaña no paraba de decir que iba a capturar a cientos de miles de criminales, y como se dio cuenta de que no es que todos los inmigrantes sean criminales, y de que cumplir la cantidad de números de criminales sin papeles que tenía planeado es muy, por no decir que es imposible, comenzó a agarrar a cualquier persona sin papeles, ya sean trabajadores, ya sean personas que no tengan ni siquiera una multa ni nada, comenzó a agarrarlos y deportarlos. ¿Por qué? Porque Donald Trump quería llenar ese maldito papel de números. Perdonen que lo diga así, pero este es un tema que me ofende y me ofenden como no tiene idea. Pero bueno, prácticamente es eso. Donald Trump llenando números de secuestrados, de personas deportadas, pero debido a que este tema fracasó, Donald Trump tuvo que montar otro espectáculo, y al hacerlo realmente ha mostrado las fallas de su sistema migratorio, y lo poco que en realidad les importa el impacto. Y en ningún lugar quedó más claro esto que cuando Jamie Raskin, ante el Congreso, expuso cómo Elon Musk violó la ley, el amor del MAGA, el amor de la vida de ellos. Así es, Elon Musk violó la ley, y miren el clip por favor.
Without objection. Thank you, Mr. Biggs. And now Mr. Raskin is recognized for 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The distinguished gentleman from Arizona began by talking about visa overstays. And so, Mr. Norris, I wanted to ask you about that. There's been a lot of discussion recently about a famous case of a visa overstay, that of Elon Musk, who had a student visa was granted entry to the country and then didn't go to school and said he never really wanted to go to school, but stayed and was able to get to work. And I wonder, in your response to the gentleman from Arizona, you said, or someone said that there's something like 500,000 people in this context. What are we doing about these visa overstays? And going back to your original comment, would we be better off if people like Elon Musk were kicked out of the country at that point, people who overstay a student visa or a work visa? Because my experience from traveling abroad is that oftentimes what we get in America is the most ambitious people, the people who want to work the hardest, create the businesses, win, Pulitzer Prizes and Nobel Prizes and so on. And he would seem to fall into that example. I mean, I guess he's in a category of his own, but somebody who was very ambitious and wanted to come here. But would we be better off making sure that everybody was kicked out of the country the day after their visa expired?
We absolutely would not be better off. We'd be substantially worse off if that were the case, especially in that example of Mr. Musk. The reason why he did what he did with the student visas and then the tricky H-1B situation, everything, was because there was no other way for him to come to this country lawfully. And it is absurd that in this country, which has been built by immigrants, all of us are descendants of immigrants here in this country today. We have a proud history of being open, that there is no other way for him to come here lawfully, to open businesses, to try his mettle, to create new firms that are multi-billion-dollar, $1 trillion of value that he has created in the world, and other people like him. The government should focus on the security threats. They should focus on criminals. They could go after these folks like ICE went after these Iranians in the last couple days, many of whom had criminal convictions. They should not be wasting their time on people with expired fishing licenses who are student visas. Now, the government does do a good amount now, especially under this administration, of trying to track down some of these overstays, but it's not a high priority because they need to go after criminals and national security threats and people like that. Every dollar they spend and every minute they waste going after non-criminals and people who aren't national security threats is a waste.
Okay. I think you're intimating views that are congruent with my own, which are we should make it much, much more difficult for people to get into America illegally and much easier for people to get into the country legally and lawfully. And I think that we have bipartisan convergence around the first issue, that we want to make it difficult to get in the country illegally, but we seem to disagree about the importance or the value of allowing people to get into the country lawfully. I think that our temporary chairman here said, and please correct me if I'm wrong, mass migration is the single biggest existential threat to our country today. What do you think about that as, setting aside climate change, terrorism, social and racial division? Is mass migration the biggest threat to our country? If we had massive lawful migration, would that be a bad thing for America?
The overuse of the word existential is a prime example of threat inflation, of trying to terrify people for no good reason. The idea that the existence of the United States is threatened by immigration is absurd. It is just the opposite. The future of the United States is guaranteed and enhanced by immigration to this country. It is what will guarantee the growth. If there was no immigration, for instance, starting right now, the population of this country will start to shrink in the mid-2040s. There will be fewer Americans. There will be a smaller America unless we expand or at least continue the legal immigration that we have now.
Okay, so why do you think immigration has become such a vexed political problem? I know historically we've gone through periods of anti-immigration fervor and xenophobia, but if we've got the grounds for bipartisan compromises we've seen repeatedly, why do some people keep on wanting to use this as a political club?
So I think it's obviously a vote getter. It obviously infuriates a lot of people. And to be, totally fair to these folks who I disagree with, I do think people see chaos and they really don't like it, right? But I think the chaos is caused by our restrictive immigration system overwhelmingly. And if we want to get control in the long term, we need to do what you suggest, which is expand legal immigration opportunities to the United States. Enforcement matters, but legal immigration matters a ton too.
Un artículo reciente del Washington Post también detalla esto, escribiendo: Elon Musk, enemigo de las fronteras abiertas, comenzó su carrera trabajando ilegalmente en Estados Unidos. Los inversionistas de la primera empresa de Musk estaban preocupados porque su fundador fuera deportado y le dieron un plazo límite para obtener una visa de trabajo. Mucho antes de convertirse en uno de los mayores donantes de Donald Trump y en el portavoz de su campaña, Elon Musk nació en Sudáfrica. Trabajó ilegalmente en Estados Unidos mientras iniciaba su carrera empresarial tras abandonar un programa de estudios de posgrado en California. Según ex asociados de negocios, documentos judiciales y registros de la empresa obtenidos por el Washington Post, cuando una firma de capital de registro invirtió $3 millones en la empresa de Musk en 1996, el acuerdo de financiamiento, una copia del cual obtuvo el Washington Post, establecía que los hermanos Musk y un socio tenían 45 días para obtener un estatus legal de trabajo. De lo contrario, la firma podría recuperar su inversión. Su estatus migratorio no era el que debía de ser para poder estar legalmente empleados dirigiendo una empresa en Estados Unidos. En fin, la hipocresía del movimiento MAGA es constante, muy evidente y extremadamente fácil de exponer. Esta es la razón por la cual tienen que distraer, y es la razón por la cual Jen Psaki siguió señalando esa distracción, como podemos ver justo en este clip.
I mean, but there's a reason Trump spent the day complaining about water pressure and straws and whatever else he was talking about, not having to pay alligators. It's because he didn't want to talk about celebrating the passage of his big, ugly bill in the Senate. When the Obama administration passed the Affordable Care Act, we were celebrating the fact that tens of millions of people would have access to health care after a very long, hard-fought fight to get that done. We were giving people something they needed. That was the reason. That's why Barack Obama wanted to be president in part. That's why a lot of people wanted to work there. We were giving people something that they didn't have before. But Trump and his allies in Congress aren't giving people something they need. They're taking it away. I mean, they're taking away health care from 11 million people. They're taking away food assistance from millions of needy Americans. They're taking away clean energy subsidies that support real jobs and lower people's energy bills. Obviously, that isn't something to celebrate. Does nothing good, nothing at all. And on some level, I guess some Republicans seem to realize that, even if it's just the politics of it. I mean, Republican Senator Josh Hawley voted for this bill today, even after he described it like this just 3 days ago.
We can't be cutting health care for working people and for poor people in order to constantly give special tax treatment to corporations and other entities.
Este realmente es uno de los ejercicios más devastadores de crueldad que hemos visto antes. Y lo peor de todo es que realmente no tiene ningún propósito. No hay motivo alguno para lo que está ocurriendo ahora, más allá del hecho de que Ron DeSantis desesperadamente quiere atención mediática, tanto para sus propias aspiraciones presidenciales como para el hecho de que su esposa se postule para gobernadora. Todavía no tienen el respaldo de Donald Trump. Esa es la razón por la cual están dispuestos a poner a personas en lo que realmente es un campo de concentración, sin el debido proceso, todo por su propio beneficio político. Esto es repugnante y realmente no podemos olvidarlo. Y créeme que en este canal siempre vas a encontrar actualizaciones sobre todos estos temas y mucho más de la política estadounidense. Para mí es muy importante que me digas qué te pareció lo que viste, lo entendiste, es realmente relevante para mí saber si lo pudiste entender o te importó al menos, ya que para mí tu opinión, créeme que es prioridad. Está de más decirlo, pero si te gusta el contenido de política estadounidense, te gusta estar informado con lo que está pasando realmente, te va a encantar suscribirte al canal, ya que subo videos todos los días. Mi nombre es José Alvarado, soy economista y estoy comprometido a informarte diariamente. Nos vemos en el siguiente video. Adiós.